Good morning, Owen. First, really thank you for the invitation. I feel a bit humbled to be in front of such a sophisticated audience, and somebody might really wonder that what on earth I'm doing here. I'm a bit walking in the shadows of Linda Griffin, who's in The King, but I'm soon going to explain why I think that I'm fit to represent like small and middle-sized tech companies. About the data, what is of course kind of a very, very essential part of any operations. So I would like to first tell you that with what kind of people I'm working with. First of all, I have nerds, and your typical nerd is a relatively young person, not necessarily male, and they are really, really excited that things work. They get so excited when some technology works that they don't really see the evil in this world. And when I'm selling them that now when you are opening that interface, do you understand what's happening? That somebody could actually misuse, for example, that end user data. They are looking at me with big eyes and saying, why would anybody do that? And then I've got that, oh dear, if there's somebody that can make money, they will certainly do. Then I have at the other extreme what are sales guys. And the good salesman is, of course, a person who sells until you nail them to the floor. And they don't understand that I'm now here to restrict their business. That's how they see me. I'm walking in and telling that, by the way, this advertising thing won't work. And they're getting really, really annoyed because, of course, all these companies are seeing that lovely moment when they're giving interviews from some beach because they just sold their company to Google. So there will be money to be made. And now we can all look in the mirror and think, how did we get into this mess? It's because we didn't want to pay for applications or services. They are free. And of course they are not free because these companies need to pay the electricity bill and hosting and pay some salary and do some nice profit, so money will come somewhere. So this advertising developed totally out of reach. This is my personal opinion, by the way. I think that people are at their most innovative when there's money to be made, and this advertising really, really developed because there was not that much hindering it. So when I'm discussing with the company, what are we now going with the GDPR, it's not that a huge shock because all of these, even very small ones that basically have like 5 coders and a coffee machine and a dog, so they are all working globally. Because once when you go online, it's always global. And here comes the challenge for these companies, because this is, of course, just one piece of legislation, and they need to be compliant all over the world with also the consumer legislation, tax, open source licenses, all kinds of restrictions, and the data. So what I then found out when discussing with authorities was that they also had a kind of a image of the typical like tech company that they do everything in-house, that everything is kind of in their control. And I don't know any tech company that would do everything in-house. But when first discussing here, even in Brussels, so I understood that they thought that you have this nice building where you have servers in the basement, and then you are like building it like a cream cake, layer after layer, and you can kind of now decide what you change and what you don't. And of course, these ecosystems are really, really huge. You all understand that. I mean, you're starting from the networks. You need something where the data moves, and then you have a hardware, and that will have operating system, what typically has already the functionalities that will actually manage the data and have certain like security features. And then you build on the APIs, what are like application programming interfaces, and then you get to the application where this little bird is very orphan and flying around in that box. And now the question is that how much do we have power for that? But in all honesty, quite a lot. And I will tell you a concrete example on the challenges, for example, on the consent side, because that sounds fantastic, and I'm personally all for it. But the problem is here that the space is limited, and how is that consent really going to look like? And how are you going to support that? Because let's say now, I'm not a mathematician, but let's say that I would have 5 choices. There would be 5 boxes that, is Leena now okay with some of these? And I decide that in this morning, I think that 1, 2, and 4 are fine, but I'm not going to give consent to 3 and 5. But tomorrow I think that, well, actually, everything is okay, and then there's that, no, whatever, I may delete them all. And now you can understand that there are a lot of combinations from even 5 choices. So you need rather sophisticated technology to pack up that system. And it's not just your first interface toward the end user, because they have all this selection behind them, providing some services into that. So they need to support those choices, otherwise it won't work. And now you can see the pain if you have a small company. You don't have money and you don't have resources, and maybe the third parties are not listening to you. My honest opinion is that they are not prepared. They have just understood that they need to support their customers. So I'm a bit afraid that it will be all or nothing at all. And then what companies now have realized, they try to stay away from that consent as far as possible. But now I have that advertising guy who walks in and says that if I can't do the targeted advertising, we will lose 50% of revenues. And then I'm looking at him and saying, you are the creative guy. Figure out something else. And now I'm going to tell you some really horrible, politically incorrect example, because I'm very known for very bad examples and provocative approach, because I just need to waken up these people. So I was looking these sales guys and I said that, let's go to the United States, southern states, a couple of 100 years back. Immense wealth, tobacco fields, cotton. People were having grand balls and drinking mint julep on the balconies. And why? Because the work was free. You didn't have to pay for your workforce. And then somebody decided that that's kind of wrong. And there was a war as a result of that, because somebody's revenue stream were hit. I hope that this will be a bit milder, the reaction in there. But I mean, honestly, there's a lot of anger and frustration, because no matter how innovative these startup people claim to be, they hate change like everybody else, if it hits you. And this is the thing that I've heard very often, that Leena, you go and do some legal documents and then we can go as before and sail to the sunset. And the news is that that's not the thing. This is not a legal operation. You have to go there with the tech in hand. One remark that we may discuss later is, of course, then the very nasty thing in the regulation that there's no one age limit for children. And here comes the thing that now when you have even just European audience, I probably end up collecting more data than I wanted first place, because I didn't want to know how old you are and where you are from exactly. But now I'm asking that I'm from Moldova, Portugal, or Sweden, and how old you are. And by the way, first I try to see behind that screen, because that's a blackness, that person must be underage. And how I'm going to recognize that somebody's the parent to give that consent on their behalf. So those are just few challenges. And then in the end, what have we now done? Because I was sitting with the Rovio Chief Technology Officer, and we were scratching our heads and thinking, we can't be alone. So we decided to call a few friends. He called his nerd friends, and I called some lawyers who were in other gaming companies like Supercell and Next Games, and seriously, Finland is infested with them. So we were thinking that if 3 or 4 people come, that would be great. We had almost 40. Now we have 100. We probably in the concert hall. We have even Germans and Russians and Danish, because everybody was so relieved. The challenge is that we are competitors. So we can't speak any business issues. There are no NDAs. It's totally open. You walk in and only speak what you could see on the newspaper front page next morning. And so what we are doing right now, and this, if somebody's interested, please contact me. We are doing a white paper on just the specific types of data, identifiers. I was humbly proud that I'm kind of in the know. I'm a lawyer and I know there's more than one ID. Everybody was talking about device ID. So I'm looking at the head of analytics and kind of that, I know there are 4. And he's looking at me like pitifully and said, Leena, we have 8. And I was there that 8 of what? And that's what we are now investigating. And I think that would be a very valuable paper, that what are those IDs that we have a common name for them if we are now trying to instruct the third parties or tell end users who creates them, who controls them, how they are used in the ecosystem. And the other one is about that we are now drawing use cases with all these companies. We have advertisers there, that how does the data actually flow in the ecosystems? Because first you need to you have a store, so there's always this triangle drama. Anything you download, you probably do it from Google or Apple Store. They will have your first contact and relationship. Only then, when they first download any game, that door opens, the data starts flowing. But I honestly don't know what's still flowing between our customer and the store. But that is something we are doing. We have a big workshop coming in October. We have a Finnish DPO coming there to speak to us. He's quite excited. And we made it very clear that we are not going on the authority domain. We are not giving any recommendation. That's a monopoly of the new data board. But what we are trying to do is to have a sincere attempt to understand how the ecosystem works and let others exploit it so that those small companies don't have to start from the beginning. Thank you.
Thank you.